What's up, you creepy fucks, and welcome to the Let's Talk Horror channel. Welcome to the Creepzone, where we have very honest, very passionate, very in-depth, unfiltered, unrated conversations about something in the world of horror. On this episode, we're going underground. We're going deeper underground. We're not singing Jamiroquai or anything like that, although it's a fucking banging tune. I've got a couple of absolute hunks with me, all the way from the US of A. we got Sean and John from the Dewey Pod-Monster podcast. How the absolute fuck are you?
I'm insulted by being called a hunk. I'm not a hunk.
Well,
A hunk of what?
You guys are.
Yeah,
hunk of
cheese and
burning
chili,
love.
maybe.
A hunk of burning love. I think that's an Elvis song, isn't it? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it is. So
Good.
We're doing good, or at least I'm doing good. I can't really speak for Sean, but I've had a morning, so that's a good thing. So
I'm alive.
Yeah, there's that.
And that's
it's always a good
all
thing
that matters.
I've been watching C.H.U.D multiple times this week, so I have mixed feelings about that.
Well, did it get worse every time you watched it, or did it get better every time you watched it?
It did get better, but I also found myself being mad at not mad, but just like, I don't know. We'll get into it, I'm sure.
Different aspects of it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, as you heard, and well, you would have seen on literally the bit that says what this episode's about, we're talking about C.H.U.D, cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. That's what it stands for, or does it? Because it sort of stands for something else later on in the film that I may or may not have written down. So if you watch the film, then you'll know the other meaning behind it. If not, well, I ain't got a fucking clue. You'll have to Google it or something afterwards. But yeah, we're talking about a proper B movie. But this is a film that I'm sort of really excited to talk about because for me, there's a little bit more to this movie than just the usual sort of B movie. We've already spoken a little bit, but I came on your show a bit ago. We spoke about Extra, a film that was extra shit for me. But you know, maybe I'm too harsh on it. But this is for me is on like sort of the other spectrum of B movies, and I'm looking forward to going into why. One thing that I always like to do on the show is sort of ask whoever I've got on as a guest. So both of you absolute hunks. But when was the first time that you watched this movie?
Sean, you want to go first?
Wow, that's total blank. Probably about 15 years ago. So recent history, I guess. It's this movie came out in 1984, so it had been around for a while. One of those kind of video store picks, seeing it on the shelf. I'm like, I need to see, seeing it for years and years and years, going to video stores, and then finally picking it up. And I probably wasn't a video store 15 years ago, but yeah, probably about that time.
For me, this was a video store find. I saw a title that said C.H.U.D. It was in the horror section. I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but I know I need to rent it. And that's how it came home. I couldn't put a date on it, but it would have been somewhere in the 90s that I saw it. I've probably seen it a handful of times since then, but I'm kind of remembering why there's a lot of years between each viewing of this over the last week. So,
yeah, this is one of the... This is one of my, when I've spoken about it a bit before on the pod and stuff as well, when I was in my teens and I got my hand on a DVD player that was region free, because obviously everything's always fucking locked and all that sort of shit. So I managed to get, and I was buying everything, and what I didn't over here, I was getting imported because, as we know, the UK is awful when it comes to horror. We very rarely get anything, so you have to import a lot from the US or Germany or Italy or something like that. Get something on eBay, send it over here. So, but this is one of the ones that years and years ago I got sort of imported on DVD, watched it, and then just moved on to the next one and moved on to the next one, and then probably about a couple years ago, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen C.H.U.D. And then it made me laugh because the word is just fucking funny, because I don't know, it just sounds like something weird. Like, it sounds a little bit dirty. but yeah, so I hadn't seen it for years, and then I sort of really enjoyed it, but not massively. But I will obviously we'll get into why. But I sort of really enjoyed it, and then obviously I've been watching it about 2 or 3 times since you guys said that this is the film that you wanted to do an episode about. So it's going to be is it going to be interesting to see what we all sort of think about it, and as to why I think it might be a little bit more highbrow than some of the other B movies that might be out there. So as you said as well, so it's released in 1984. It's directed by Douglas Cheek or something. I've probably said that one. Check. I don't know. It's starring Marv from Home Alone, which is Daniel Stern. You've got Kevin McAllister's dad, John Hurd. Not all the cast is Home Alone.
I think this is just a Home Alone prequel. Like,
it's just a prequel.
Obviously, yeah. Obviously, Harry and Marv are just chuds that have been reformed and allowed to go roam the city of Chicago and rob houses.
Yeah, Joe Pesci is definitely a chud.
Absolutely. He'll probably kill us for that, but yes.
He probably will, actually. Yeah, it's a good point. I should probably edit that out. But fuck it, because I don't edit anything. So he's just going to come and kill me. We're probably the same height anyway. So it'll be a good fight. So Laurie Mattis, whatever, Christopher Curry, basically loads of other shit, like loads of people, including John Goodman pops up in this in one of his first roles, and probably gives more character to anybody else than anybody else does in this movie in like 30 seconds. IMDb 5.6, Rotten Tomatoes 29%, but you know, who gives a fuck? Google synopsis wise, so this is the longest synopsis. So photographer George Cooper, John Hurd, is documenting the lives of subterranean homeless people, a population that was mysteriously dwindled. After receiving information from a reporter, George becomes aware of a conspiracy theory about cannibalistic monsters lurking in the sewers. He teamed up with a reporter, a policeman, Christopher Curry, and a priest, which I didn't realise was a priest until I watched it again, Daniel Stern, to fight 2 battles, one against the cannibals and one against the corrupt government officials. I mean, that's pretty in-depth.
It makes it sound pretty intense.
It did make it sound more intense than probably what the movie is. That sounds quite fucking exciting. So this movie is an interesting one. So it sort of starts where we're on the streets. I mean, so one of the things that I do want to talk about this film is that it's actually reasonably aesthetically or visually pleasing for a movie that it is, in my view anyway. You guys might think it looked like a piece of shit, but I think it's quite visually pleasing. And one of the sort of main things for that is the opening shot. I really love it when in like the 80s and like the early 90s we had these really cool wide shots, and the first sort of shot of the movie is the wife that we don't know at that time walking down the street in the middle of the street, and you've got almost like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles first movie backdrop as she's walking down there going towards the sewer, and everybody's like, oh, it's gonna be a fucking turtle come out. But it's not. She gets eaten by the dog and everything, by the sewer, and one of the little hands comes out. But that's quite a current trend for me in this movie, where there's quite a lot of decent aesthetical looks to this movie. Do you think that, or do you think it just looks like a piece of shit?
I think it captures that 80s like New York grimy kind of look perfectly. You know, that's like the cesspool of America, I guess, or the idea of what a cesspool of America would be in the 80s is New York, where this whole movie is just so dirty. All the characters look dirty. There's no apologies for them looking like they haven't showered in a week. Clothes are just hanging off of them. It's just a look for sure, and it captures what you would expect I think for 80s New York.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I have I don't want to go as far to say a love affair, but an appreciation for like movies from the 70s, the 80s, and even the 90s a little bit, where they just make New York look like absolute trash. I was only in New York once in the 90s, and I don't remember it looking this bad, but the way that New York is depicted in movies like this, and you can think about movies like The Warriors or, so many others, where it just looks like, you're just waiting to get killed by either a person or a monster or whatever, and this is like the real armpit of humanity is New York City. Especially as someone from Detroit, I love that. I think it's great. So, and I like seeing it on a city other than ours. So,
Yeah, there's quite a few like really like old school looking shots in this film. There's like I will never get tired from, and it sort of reminds me of the first Terminator as well, where I will never get tired or bored of seeing an old school police car going across like a bridge or going through a street or something, and the way they always film it like really low. Like I'll never get bored of that, and like obviously in the Terminator, but for some reason it always looks incredible on film. I don't know what it
it's
is, but
interesting
it just
you
works.
it's interesting you said that. There's a scene later in the movie where whatever her name is, she steals a cop
Yeah,
car
she's
and she's
driving the
driving
car.
away.
Yeah,
And it's exactly that shot that you're referring to. It's that low angle shot, kind of looking up at the police car, and that shot does look really good and kind of pulls you into what's going on in the movie, as opposed to like the Fast and the Furious shots now, where it's just like spin the camera around and CG muscle car jumping out of a building or something. This feels a lot more grounded, even though it's a movie
yeah,
about chuds. So
about Chuds.
No pun intended. Grounded.
yeah.
Wouldn't it be kind of a little weird to see a I don't know, a Challenger jumping out of a building with an explosion behind it in this movie though?
I think it's weird to see that in any movie because generally
Nah,
cars do not jump out of buildings.
I don't know where you live, but that's commonplace for me.
You live the same place where I live. You're like 20 miles away from me.
It's more exciting here, for
Yeah,
sure.
in
Clearly.
20 minutes difference, they got cars jumping through buildings.
Clearly. So I
That's
need to
it.
come to your house more often.
All
Open
the
invitation.
excitement is. But yeah, it is a film that has a lot of sort of aesthetically pleasing imagery in it, but also like there are some bits that make it look like shit, and it makes you remember that you're watching a B movie, which is something I'll talk about a little bit later in regards to like I sort of mentioned a little bit. Like I see this as a little bit more of a highbrow piece of shit B movie, but yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to love about this film. So one of the other things as well is that it does, and one of the things that I sort of really respect it for is that it does try and do a lot of character work. Like there's a lot of people in it, but it doesn't just go along the aspects of going, we're going to make a film about people that just live, chuds that live underground and then come up and murder people. They try and add quite a lot of character work in it. You've got Marv, obviously from Home Alone, who apparently plays a priest, but I didn't even realize he was a priest. He's just some guy in like, feeding the homeless.
It's really not a big part of his story.
No. But I think all of them do a really good job at like all the cast properly treat this like a proper movie. Like they don't sit there and then go, we know that we're in this sort of movie. Like they're proper going for it.
Yeah, there's nobody that acts like they're in on the joke, or they're not like shooting glances at the camera like, yeah, we know this is crap, we're on the same page. No, they play it like super to the hilt serious, like everything is, they got this issue, these homeless people, or these people are just showing up missing, and it's like it's not played for laughs at all. It's super serious, and that's what's kind of fun about the movie, is that it could go so. I mean, there's a sequel to this, right? And it's a comedy. Yeah. It's a comedy horror film. This one is not. This is like pure straight up, or it tries to. I think it aspires to be straight up comedy, regardless if it accomplishes that or not. Did I say comedy?
Yeah.
Horror.
Jeez. Yeah. And I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm glad that you said like it aspires to be, because that's what I'll talk about in a bit as well. Because I think there's a lot of aspirations for this film that I find interesting. But yeah, they do a lot of stuff with the character. You might completely disagree with me, but I cannot fucking stand the guy that plays John Hurd, the guy Kevin McAllister's dad. There's something about the guy that I just want to absolutely lamp him one right in the face, right in the chops.
Feels like an underlying prick.
Yeah, he always feels like he's trying to be like a Paul Newman, Robert Redford cool guy by like not having any emotion in regards to like what he's saying and stuff like that, and always trying to play it cool. But he just
In
comes
this
across
movie
as a dick.
or all his
In this
stuff?
movie,
Okay.
yeah, especially this movie. I mean, he's not really in Home Alone too much, apart from being a shit dad, and losing his kid. But
It's not really in this too much aside from being a shit father to be,
yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah, do you want to
arguably a
have a
shit
kid?
employee.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think
Yeah,
he
So
shit
just plays it.
employee.
I think the character just plays it so serious. Like he's not. It's all business for him.
Yeah, I suppose.
He's
Yeah,
got this issue where he's got photos of people who have been, I don't know, mutilated, or why are these homeless people looking for guns and weapons under when they live underground? And I guess there's no crime underground, but
I feel like if you live underground, a gun would be essential. But what do
right.
I know?
Yeah, you'd think
So,
so. But I
or at
don't know. I
least a
think
knife or
he
something.
plays it serious because he considers it to be serious. Like this isn't. I don't know. I didn't take it as him being an asshole. I just took it as him like super serious. Does he win? Does he win? Does he run off on his girlfriend or whatever during a photo shoot and like leave her high and dry? Yeah, that's a super asshole move. But I guess he's chasing his story, right? The whole sub story about the missing people and this homeless lady that calls him for to get her bailed out of jail, essentially for trying to steal a gun.
yeah. There's yeah, maybe. I mean, you sort of made me look into it a little bit more. I think it's just because I probably would like to punch him. So, but it's the same. But yeah, as I said, like that they all the characters in it, like they're there, they have purpose. Everyone is on their sort of game. Like everybody, like you said rightly, they're all on the same page. They want to make a movie and try and and give it the best opportunities for people to enjoy it rather than be like, this is stupid. Like no one's really hamming up like their performances, apart from the best character in it, which is the guy that's masturbating the knife on the table off constantly. Like I feel so
Oh,
sorry for
Les
that
or
guy's
whatever.
dick. Yeah, like he's there and
Yeah.
that guy's dick is absolutely mashed. Like I feel so far sorry for him. He's just sitting there for like 2 minutes, like that. Somebody's going to
I don't know.
take
He's
this
kind
video of
of.
me doing that and put a dick in it. But like but he's the best character because he's fucking mental.
Oh, he's the definitive bum. He's got a hobo knife. It looks like it bends quite a bit, and he's
No one
not
gave
get too
him a real
close,
one.
no bite. He just, yeah, well, probably for the better. But he's, stabbing at cops and, just being a general deranged hobo. We like that on our show. We're all about hobos being used in movies as a character. So,
That's it. And he's one that's an incredibly aggressive masturbator.
Sean, I can't hear you.
Hey, see, I didn't interrupt anybody. I think that you kind of touched on it with the cast in this, but that guy Val, who's the hobo dude with the deranged guy,
That's right,
who
Val. Yeah,
gets I don't know, does he get killed like later in the movie just so unceremoniously, or is he just knocked out? I couldn't really figure it out. But that
I thought
guy,
he got out because
no, they
doesn't.
closed the lid of the fucking street on his head. He was climbing out,
Oh,
and that's when
okay.
they
Oh,
closed the lid
that's
on him,
right. I
and he
forgot.
fell off the
See?
ladder. But
That's how
that
good this movie
actor,
is. I forgot about my favorite character's death.
there you go. Hey,
yeah, the
prime
best
character.
character in it, and I can't remember.
That guy has been in so much stuff, that actor who plays Val. I mean, I'm looking at his IMDb right now. He's known for LA Confidential, Leaving Las Vegas, Sicario, Day of Soldado. But there are so many actors in this movie that you recognize, and you're like, why are they slumming it in this 84 B movie that, nobody probably saw when it came out? Like, there are so many. Daniel Stern, this is only a few years, and John Hurt, they're only a few years from Home Alone. We're talking like 5 or 6 years. There's just a lot of talent in the movie that you just recognize in the background playing just these tertiary characters. You're like, oh, these people actually went on to do other things. There's so many movies that John and I have talked about where it's like, this is the only, and I'm sure that you've talked about, the only movie they've ever done.
Yeah.
Or they have like one movie before, one movie after, and they just
BP
disappear
usually
into
talks
obscurity.
about movies that people have actually seen. We're the ones who talk about stuff like the nostril
got
picker and fucking Fat Guy Goes Nutsoid and other
Hey.
gems. So
No accounting for taste.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, at least we know that Chud was responsible for a lot of people's careers.
There you go.
It
So
played a hand in it
it's,
for sure.
yeah, exactly. I reckon so many people saw Chud and were like, you know what? Even the guy that masturbates a knife, what a fucking legend. We're going to put him in some proper great movies.
I think
Obviously, you
it's
can't
more like
masturbate.
I think it's more like the Kevin Smith story where people saw him and they're like, you know what? If this guy can make a movie, I can make a movie too.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so there's loads of really cool. What are your sort of some of your favorite moments from the movie?
I enjoy the Evil Dead 2 homage near the end where she like samurai hacks the one Chud's head off. That's kind of fun. Where it like so I'm not really sure what Chuds can or can't do, but this one in particular, he's basically having a stare down with girl whose name I can't remember, and his neck starts. In fairness, too, like if someone's threatening you with a samurai sword, maybe you shouldn't make your neck longer. Like that's probably don't give them a bigger
Yeah,
target, you know.
that's just a given. We
But
all know that.
yeah, he starts like extending his neck, and she hacks it off, which is actually a pretty decent effect for what it is. Like the green blood looks a little cheesy, but
It's
severed
a
heads are
chud.
usually severed
He's a
heads are
chud,
usually
yeah.
entertaining. I also really think I enjoy how much I don't know how much they paid for these chud arms that keep reappearing in and out of different parts of the movie, but they really got their money worth out of that prop because there's so many scenes kind of sprinkled throughout the movie where you don't really see the chud as a whole, but you see their arms either kind of popping out of a sewer drain, going through a door, or just kind of sitting there waving at someone. I think that's one of the funny things is how often they use the same two chud arms as a prop repeatedly throughout the film.
Yeah, favorite scenes for me, I think that opening scene is just iconic. Where
Yeah.
for this, I mean, iconic as far as Chud goes. You know how iconic can that be? But when the lady's walking the dog and the manhole cover opens up and the arm comes out and snags her, it's like
Yeah.
as soon as I saw that, I was hooked. Hooked. Maybe not in the best way. Maybe
They grabbed you.
yeah, there you go. It grabbed me. Maybe I don't value my time much, but I was hooked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, I there's a lot of really cool little scenes in it. Obviously, like I've already said, there's a lot of scenes that are building like sort of character moments and stuff. But one of the scenes that really sort of stands out to me is that I think is like, and I throw in little things in there as well. But I before I really get into sort of like how I feel about it and that, and how I think it's a little bit more than the usual sort of B movie horror. But yeah, I really like when they do the whole almost a bit like a found footage or handheld. Like that scene there was like I really liked that scene because it felt like a little bit different. It felt like you hadn't really seen that integrated into films back then so much. I think that's like a really cool scene, where he's just like, "You're not sending in your men," and he's like, "Oh fuck off! I'll do what I want." And the guy goes in there with a flamethrower, and it's sort of almost like reminiscent of Aliens, where they're going in there and they've got like the headset things and stuff. And I thought that's a really cool little scene, and it lends to um, it helps evolve the story because you're like, oh, okay, like these things are on the ground, but also they are an actual threat, and it actually elevates that threat when you have scenes like that. But I thought that was like a really cool, well done scene. Where they've got the screens there as well, the different screens, and obviously you've got the guy that's sitting there who hasn't got a fucking clue what he's doing. But that I thought that was a really cool scene, like a good entry into the movie where you're like, okay, that's a little bit different, and I applaud you for having some creativity when you couldn't have done.
And the cool thing about that scene, it's funny you bring that up. It's like it builds the story between letting you know how much tension there is between these, I don't know, the EPA or whatever investigators and the cops who are just getting
Yeah,
sent in. And it is a really cool scene because the EPA guy who you would consider maybe it's funny to say that the cops are the good guys, but the
yeah,
EPA guys are kind of the ones that want to cover it up, and they've got the camcorder, and the feed is just them filming the police and that whole scene with the flamethrowers. And they're like, we can see something through the flames. What is that? You know, and it's just it is a really cool looking scene. And when you said aliens, I was nodding enthusiastically. That's the first thing that comes to mind. It feels very much like those helmet cams from the movie when they're going through the ship to exterminate all the aliens. It's like John mentioned Evil Dead 2, them cribbing Evil Dead 2, but it's like Evil Dead 2 came after John. So maybe a lot of movies took inspiration from C.H.U.D that we didn't even think of.
Well, this is it. It's good to do episodes like this because we uncover like the truth. It's like we realize
creativity. C.H.U.D.
I think what we really just realize is that John has no concept of time or dates and thinks everything goes to a better movie. So
yeah, it's what we've established is that once again, C.H.U.D is more important than what anybody thought. You know, everybody's like Jaws this and Alien this.
Should have been C.H.U.D.
You know what? C.H.U.D.
Cultural touchstone.
Exactly. We need to come up with a different definition of what C.H.U.D stands for. But
I mean, fun fact: did you know that C.H.U.D actually inspired Halloween 1978?
That's impossible.
That's not. It's totally possible. C.H.U.Ds have the. C.H.U.D really stands for cannibalistic Halloween inspiring dudes.
Uninspiring. Uninspiring.
Oh, uninspiring.
Inspiring with a U.
Inspiring with a U, absolutely.
Exactly. But yeah, we're uncovering the truths here. This happens quite a lot, my show, when I feel like that guy from Unsolved Mysteries, where we're uncovering the real truths of Hollywood. That like it's always like the cover up when you watch these movies and you're like, hang on a minute, like all these casts went on to do bigger films because of C.H.U.D. And then you've got, stuff like this was done in C.H.U.D. And then you see it later on, like in Evil Dead 2. And like, so you get loads of shit that pops up. And it's all because of C.H.U.D. And, you know, Absolutely. We've got a lot to thank for it. But yeah, also there's loads of cool, for ages as well. And I thought that even into the last time that I watched it for prep, I was convinced that the guy's name, the main cop, Bosch, I thought they were calling him Boss. But then I thought they were calling him Boss. And I was like, oh, okay, that sort of makes sense. But then I heard one of them be like Bosch. And I was like, did he just say something like, did he just call him Bosch and get it completely wrong? And I thought he fucked up. But obviously it was me that fucked up because I thought his name was Boss. But his name was Bosch. But he's got a pretty sweet moustache. It's a proper cop's moustache. I like his moustache in it. There's quite a few pretty cool moustaches in it. There's a guy. Wife. Yeah, he can't find. Yeah, exactly. He can't find his wife if she's dead. Which is also fucked up as well when they do that little thing. I don't know whether it's dubbed in, but there's the bit where they finally find the head of his wife.
Yeah.
And then they go, and then like it's on the thing, and it's like, oh my god, that's his wife.
Well, I love that they find his wife's head, and it's this super like cutaway, like quick, almost like a gag.
Yeah.
And he goes and has a couple drinks, and he's just back on the force, ready to go fight some C.H.U.Ds, no problem.
Ready to go. So. He's just like, these motherfucking C.H.U.Ds. They're killing my wife. They're killing our wives. They're hiding our kids. They're all after us. And
they don't like our dogs.
Yeah, that scene makes me laugh. There's loads of little scenes in there like that. And then, the guy's just like, oh, it's his wife. Get him out of here. And then that's it. And you've got the little scene as well where, one of the other cool scenes. So, like, obviously, John Goodman, as I said, he turns up in this. He's being an absolute fucking perv. Classic John Goodman. And he's just... so he's being a perv at the waitress, and he does like he's definitely improvising as well. Like there's no, like even though it's like his first thing, he's pretty much like, I'm going to just say what I fucking want because look, like it feels like he's the one in the movie that's like, I'm in a movie.
It's like he came in and said, you don't know this yet, but I'm John Goodman and I can get away with whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah. So. In many years' time, I'm going to be once again C.H.U.D. John Goodman is around because of C.H.U.D. So there's another one. But that's a cool scene as well where, unfortunately, you don't see that much. But that's quite a cool scene where he's there and then obviously the C.H.U.Ds actually come from underground, overground, and then starts killing everybody in that sort of like diner thingy, whatever it is. I mean, we don't have those sort of really cool looking diners over here. But that's quite a cool scene. Oh, that's a shame. They're like the most cinematic looking things in the world, and we don't have anything over here like that.
Now they're
But that
all Leo's Coney Islands and chains and
and nothing
California
like that
pizza
anymore. What a
kitchens.
shame.
Yeah, they're not not a lot of good stuff anymore.
See, part of that, like, to me, that's like part of like America history, because we don't really know what it's like over there. We're over here. So every time we watch a movie, we were like, oh, those things are so cool. And then you probably like don't have you probably got one over there now, and that's it.
I
You
think
gotta
there's
look for
probably
them.
still a shit ton in New York, but here there's like one that I can think of that's like that.
But yeah, so John Goodman, he pops up, does that sort of scene. I like that scene. But what I like about that scene is where Bosch, he turns up, and he's just like, like kicking off, because he's like to this guy, look, it's all fucking kicking off. Because he's told him multiple times. They even have that meeting where it's all sort of going down, and they're trying to explain, like, look, we know the shit, we know what's going down, we know that you're hiding stuff. But I love it because he does that thing in movies where like they're all like holding him back and stuff like that, and they're like, you fucking like get him out of here. And he's doing it, but the camera stays on him for so long that he gets out of breath. So he's just like like that, and you can see him, and it's so funny seeing him like where they're almost like, when you gonna cut, because I'm gonna pass out because I've lost all the air inside of my body. So that's cool. But there's loads of cool little scenes in this movie. And that scene when they go and sort of try and explain it. I like how once again it's like the difference in this movie, and the odd little things they throw in, where you've got like them having this meeting, and normally it would be the entirety of that room that are on at them. They're like, no, like, we're not uncovering this, we don't want people to know about this and all that sort of stuff. But it's like, I don't know, who is he? Like, one of them's like, is he like the mayor or something like that, or like a chief commissioner of the police or something like that?
Yeah,
but he's like almost, and at some point they end up becoming on their side. And I like that sort of difference, where it isn't constantly like that back and forth, where they're like, that only really happens with the main sort of bad guy of the movie, if you can call him really a bad guy. He's like the cover up. That only really happens with him, but the other ones are like almost on Bosch's side, where they're like, we've got to go with Bosch on this one. And then the other guy's like, no, you're fucking not, because otherwise shit's going to hit the fan. Yeah, I like that little thing. And obviously Marv from Home Alone, that I keep forgetting his name, Daniel Stern, that's the one. I like how he is in that scene where he almost takes charge of it, and you're like, this guy's like a homeless priest. Like, why are you fucking listening to him?
I've called him David Stern more times than I can count, and every time I do, I'm like, Sean reminds me, no, that's the basketball commissioner. So former, yeah. I don't even know who the current one is, but
yeah, and then there's also loads. Yeah, and also the best one of my, I just remembered one of my favorite bits of the movie is the intimidating Ryan Gosling lookalike. I don't know if you remember this bit, but it's the guy in the dark red polo who goes up and his intimidation tactic while Marvin's on the phone is to eat the coin. Whatever it is, to eat the coin from the thing. And I'm like, that is like, I'm going to try doing that and see what happens.
I actually like Marv's reaction, because I feel like so many movies, the canned response you would expect is him to like punch him or whatever. I like that Marv just looks at him like, what the fuck did I just watch? And it hangs long enough that you can tell they told him just to react to it, but not like attack him.
Yeah, like, don't rise to it. Just watch him.
If you've ever been around a city like New York or other big metropolitan area, if some weirdo walks up to you, takes your quarter and eats it, your best response is just to hope he goes away. So it's not going to end well.
The smug look on the polo guy's face sells it, because he's just like, what are you going to do? Look at me.
Right.
Yeah. I just take your fucking coin. What are you going to do about it, bitch?
I'm going to pay for this later. You could dig that out of my stool.
Right.
Still need to make a phone call.
And also, it probably sucks for Daniel Stern's character as well, because he's fucking homeless. He's got like no money, so that's like a double burn for him. because he's just like, oh, well, what the fuck do I do now? Like, I was going to buy like lunch with that, and now that's in this absolute preppy boy's stomach. But that's a hilarious. But he pops up later on in it as well. But I can't remember what happened. I was too busy laughing at the eating the coin thing.
He's the guy that drops the door on the guy's head when he was coming up through the ladder.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he does pop up.
Poor Val.
Poor Val. That's it. Great character. Appeared in so many bigger movies than this later on in his career. Once again,
started off as knife jacker offer.
Knife jacker
offer. He just aspired to such high heights, you know.
That
how they
like
didn't do a spin-off. Yeah, how they didn't do a spin-off called Knife Jacker, and it's just him going around doing that on a knife.
I mean,
I don't know how he. I don't know how he kill people if he's just jacking off a knife, but it'll still be funny.
You know what? There's a way. So
there's a way. There's a way. But yeah, so this movie is for me, it's a really interesting one because I actually feel like there's a lot going for this movie than a lot of other sort of B movies that I've seen before. Because a lot of the time they are properly shit and there's not too much to them. And that's what's quite interesting about this, that I genuinely, because I said I watched this when I was like a teen, then just watched loads. And I mean, I don't even remember it. And when I watched it a couple years ago, I was just like, you know, I was in that period where I was just like watching once again, like so much had come on Amazon and Shudder and stuff like that. And I was just like, I'm just going to go after this old school, you know, 80s horror with this one and just keep going through them. And, you know, every now and again, or the majority of them, they were like, you know, properly shit. Like sometimes you're like so bored halfway through, you're like, I don't even know if I want to like watch the rest, but you do just to see how it ends, which is one of the things about this movie as well, because the ending's pretty shit. Actually, it doesn't really say too much. Like the ending is pretty much that like they're dead. I don't know, like are the monsters all dead? Like they blow them up or whatever. And you've got that really, really amazing shot. That's one of the other amazing shots of the movie is the truck that's on fire. So they basically end up trapping them down there with the gas, and then they blow it all up. But the truck thing that in the background of it actually is a really nice shot. Like I really like that. But it just sort of really ends like abruptly. Like you're like, I don't understand. Like, did they kill them? Like, are they all dead, or are they just like, let's hope for the sequel?
I think they're trying to throw you off the scent with the truck is parked on a manhole cover. The truck moves. They get the manhole cover off. There's a couple people trapped under there. It's two of the main characters, and they get out, and then they're out on the street, and the bad guy is driving the truck around, you know, to come hit him or whatever. And he just like barely the wheel goes in the open manhole cover, and that for some reason like sparks this giant explosion of the truck, and it's like, okay, this is like the most hair trigger explosion ever.
Yeah,
on the face of
it.
it.
That about it. Like I like the ridiculousness of it. So, and I like that in this era of movies, it's like it is ambiguous and it doesn't make sense, and it all the bad things you can say about it are absolutely true, but it's fun, it looks good, it's entertaining, and it serves a purpose in the movie.
Yeah, and you're right as well, because I thought I was missing something. I was hoping that you were going to be able to tell me how the fuck it all blew up. Because I thought I was missing stuff, because all I saw was a tire go over like a manhole cover thingy, and then it just, that's it, fucking
it's
gone.
Like a nuclear explosion.
Yeah, exactly. But it looks great, and the film sort of ends without you really knowing what happens, apart from just seeing a really cool fucking explosion. So it doesn't really give you that much, and it doesn't really give you that much in the way of like going, like there's no scene where you see like a hand come out of a manhole thing right at the end, which I was expecting. Like the first time I watched it, and obviously completely forgot about it. And when I watched it the other day for prep, and I was just like, oh, there's definitely going to be something at the end, but it doesn't. It just sort of
two fingers raise out of the manhole cover.
Yeah, that's it.
Too.
Yeah, or like a turtle's hand comes out. And then that's it. And then they're like, oh, it's a fucking nod to Turtles and everything. Like the Chuds and Michelangelo, Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, Splinter, all those. They're just down there with these Chuds
A
hanging
chud
out,
hand
eating
with a
pizza.
slice of pizza.
Yeah, yeah. That would have been a great ending. Instead, we don't really know what fucking happened. Just that we just got a great, absolutely pointless, amazing explosion. But yeah, going back to sort of what I was saying was, yeah, I feel like there's a lot more. Oh, it sounds like I was saying something. No, what's that? Thundercats. I can't remember. I was saying, or Transformers. I was just about to say it's more than meets the eye. I think that's Transformers.
It's Transformers.
That's it. But it's there's more to this movie than, like I said, just like a typical B movie that you put on. Like, but not so much like the way I was looking at it the other day, and I was trying to think of it is that sometimes I like to do like double bills of movies that like feel quite similar. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to watch this one. I'm going to watch this one. And what I find quite interesting about this movie, I'm sure I've got it here somewhere. I can't remember. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so this film came out in 1984, the same time as Toxic Avenger. Toxic Avenger cost 500,000 to make, I think, and Chud cost like 1.2 million or something. So not that far away. And then something like, say, like Alien, which came out in like 1979, obviously got a bigger budget, 11 million, and so on like that. And for me, this is like, it sort of shows the difference between budgets and what you can do with them, even though you have like a really solid idea. Like this film is like a, what's a word for it? But it's like a real highbrow concept. Like the concept of this movie is very much almost an Alien-esque higher budget movie, but it's just shot on a really small budget. So, like I was saying, where they, you know, everybody's not hamming up and they're doing a really good job. Like everybody's like, you know, bringing their A game to it. They're trying to do what they can with the special effects, which I really like the special effects in this. Like you said as well, like the monsters, the chuds, whatever they're fucking called, the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, they look all right. They're proper hench, like they've got proper Brock Lesnar necks. But the effects on like the bodies and stuff, that's really good. Like I think they look great. Like there's a real sense of realism to them. Like the people that did it, they were like, we're gonna try and like make these as real.
That dude whose leg has a big chunk taken out of it, that's a
Yeah.
really good gnarly shot.
I
whatever
was
his
just
name
about
is,
to say
the guy
that.
in the sewer. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks great because you can see like the bone and everything like that in it, and they do a really good job.
Right.
And there's a lot of moments in this film where they have really cool special effects and stuff. So once again, it's like for the budget they had, they did a really good job. But like I said, this is like a high concept movie done on a really small budget, and so it's interesting because this film, on a story wise, as an idea, as a concept, if you were going off that alone, this would be like the type of film that you could double bill with things like Alien and Aliens and stuff like that. You know, in the old school sort of 70s, 80s horrors that are like, you know, have a higher brow sort of concept. But because of the film and what it is and what it ends up being, it's one of those movies that you would probably end up having a film night where you watch this with The Stuff or what's it called? Street Trash and shit like that, you know, where those ones are like proper B movies that are still really good, really enjoyable, but there's not the extra depth, there's not the extra level of it. They've got great effects, and that's what they rely on. Same as like Toxic Avenger and stuff, but you can enjoy those movies, but you enjoy them really essentially because they're like B movies. And this one is quite cool because they fit in between. That's if you
I feel
do
like
enjoy
this
them.
is
Shit.
no, well, I feel like this is a high, like, I feel like this is a really, if someone came up to me and said, I want to get into B movies, where do I start? It's like a loaded question, but I feel like this is a good starting point for that because,
Yeah.
as we said, the acting's not terrible. The effects are not like there's nothing terrible in this movie. Like you mentioned
Yeah.
a movie like Street Trash, which I've heard this compared to a few times, which don't get me wrong, I love a movie like Street Trash because it is the epitome of trash film. But that movie is, you know, it's got a bunch of like bum dick flapping around through it throughout the whole movie. There is no real acting in it. It's totally cheesy. Some of the effects are really cool, but
Yeah.
you're talking about a whole different breed of B movie than what you get with Chud. With Chud,
Yeah.
you know, you can kind of dip your toes into like B horror movie without having to deal with some of the things that I think once you're going on that journey, you're going to figure out if you like or if you don't. Because there's a lot of us like Sean and myself who, how bad is this? Because that's kind of what I'm looking for. We want to find like the most like
Depraved.
barely consider this like a movie that we can watch in a lot of cases, where this still has like plot device. Like one of my negatives for this movie is it takes too long for the chuds to show up, and the chuds don't do enough. Like from
Yeah.
the creature feature horror movie aspect of it, I mean, it big picture it's not that big a deal, but I would have loved to seen more of the chuds. Like you just, even if there's just like a random scene, like the dude in the phone booth where one just kind of shows up and eats the old motherfucker, and then there's this like traumatized
Yeah.
girl. I would have, for me, like for a true B movie feel, I would have been fine with like, we have three main characters in this movie that they really flesh out pretty well, and they do a good job of developing their characters. You know enough about them to know kind of what their motivations are and what kind of characters they are. Great. But if I want to watch a B movie, I'd rather get rid of at least one, like the storyline with one of those characters, and just make them there for whatever their like plot devices are, and kind of take that down and take the schlock up and have more chud and more that type of stuff. It's not necessarily bad per se, but it kind of takes it a little more towards like, this is a creature feature horror movie that was trying to be a, maybe not a blockbuster or an A title, but it was trying to be a legitimate film. And obviously there's like an environmental, you know, subplot and all that type of shit with it, as opposed to some of the B movies or C or D movies where it's like, we just wanted to like blow a bunch of stuff up and put some boobs on screen and see what happened. Like this feels more well thought out, well planned, well shot. Just it achieves everything at a much higher level than a generic B film, especially in comparison to a movie like Street Trash or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the
There's no
story
boobs
too
in
is
this, is there?
it's very
Not
high.
in this.
It tries to be like really highbrow. Like the story, you know, we talk about there's three main characters. The three main characters don't even meet each other until like 20 minutes left of the movie. So they converge these two plots. Well, the two main guys, right? Because John Hurd, Kevin McAllister's dad, and AJ, aka Marv, aka David Stern, aka Daniel Stern, are all like those are the two main characters. They don't meet up until that last section where they start flooding the sewer to try and get rid of the chuds with the gas and they're suffocating, so they need to get out, and that's the truck moves and the explosion and all that stuff. The other thing that I wanted to just kind of mention real quick is, you know, you talked about the effects, and they show when Bosch's wife is found and her head is, you know, she's decapitated. The thing about this movie too, and they do it with the chuds themselves, with the characters, it feels like the effects are really well done, and it feels like the chud costumes, like the outfits, are mostly pretty pro, like they look pretty good.
Yeah.
I think the thing that they do that helps a lot with that is they don't ever really linger on, you know, they show, you guys talked about the bite on the guy's leg. They kind of just show it in passing. They don't like
Yeah.
focus on it for too long.
Yeah.
They do these shots where there are a few times, I don't know, the chuds don't like people's heads for some reason, because they have a couple people that are just decapitated.
I know
And they'll
feet
just
on them.
do this, they'll do this like real quick zoom on the head, and they don't really let you even look at it. It's just kind of like, oh shit, that's a head. There's no body attached, or this is a mangled body or whatever. Zoom in on it real quick, and then next scene. And by doing that, by not focusing on the imperfection, like not letting you look at it long enough, you're not seeing where the imperfections are to be like, that looks like shit. Like if they just lingered on that for a second longer, you'd be like, that doesn't look anything like a person. So I think that they know what they're doing, but in, you know, just focusing on it really quickly, it adds to that feel like, oh, this is really well done. Where it's like, maybe that's why they don't show the chuds too much. They don't show them really doing much besides like that phone booth scene. They don't show. There's like nothing. It's just the eyes show up in the mouth, and it's all
Well, and that's pretty
goopy
much
and wet.
what
And they just
the
it's gone.
yeah, and that's pretty much what the John Goodman scene is when they show up.
Yeah.
Like they don't show them because they kind of imply that they kill John Goodman, other cop, and
Jay
waitress.
Thomas.
And waitress that they're trying to bang. Like they imply that they basically ate these 3 people because they're cannibalistic humanoid underdwellers. But all you really see is you kind of see their, like, they might as well have these on like a prop board where they just kind of spring up in the window and go roar, and their eyes light up, and that's kind of what you see out of that scene. And they cut away with some like chaos sounds and move on to the next scene. So to Sean's point, like you're right, they don't dwell on anything that you could pick apart like that long enough to really. I mean, I guess we could now because we could just pause it and look at it in HD and all that shit, but that kind of takes away from the spirit of the movie, I guess. But yeah, they don't dwell on it long enough for you to really pick it apart too much.
Yeah, and you're right as well. Like it's, I feel like that was definitely like a decision made, and it's one of those things that's like you understand the decision, like Sean was saying, like when they're cutting away quickly and not showing too much and stuff. Like the more I think about that, the more I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that sort of does make sense because yeah, maybe these chuds did look like shit because we very rarely see them when it's not like they're not shrouded in darkness. Like they're always in the dark, and very rarely, like I think the only time you might see a little bit of them like in the light is in the apartment with when they're after douche face McAllister's dad wife or whatever, and you see him when he gets his like weird dick neck thing.
Yeah.
But he but yeah, like that's the only sort of time you really see them in the light. And then it doesn't look great. But I think like once like them also, like you were saying earlier on, I feel like there's the missed opportunities for us to get those really cool scenes where the diner is a prime example where you could have actually seen them on this massacre doing all this horrible stuff to everyone, John Goodman, everything like that, seeing all these people in there die. And they're, rather than just seeing the aftermath where the police turned up and there's blood everywhere and it's all hanging down, which is quite cool. It looks great. Like you've got the diner thing and it's all the blood hanging, like coming down all out the windows, and it looks great. But once again, it's like, it's a missed opportunity. But then sometimes, like Sean's saying and stuff, and it makes me think more about it, that it maybe that's a conscious decision that they did that because of how the chuds may have just looked like shit and it might not have worked. And like you say, they could have just held up a stick with their head on it and do it that way. But
Hit it on the window a couple times.
Yeah, exactly. Or just use the arm that they use 1,000 times.
There's also a handful of scenes in this, and the one that really comes to mind is the shower scene where it's you watching and you just go, what the fuck just happened? Like,
yeah.
So very briefly, like it's an 80s horror movie, so there has to be a gratuitous shower scene, even though they don't really show anything in it. And, Kevin McAllister's future mom is going to take a shower, and it instantly backs up. It's like there's 20 pounds of hair in the shower, and it's just plugged to the point of no return. So she decides to go at it with a hanger, which I almost was like, well, we know she's pregnant. Is this supposed to be some kind of like,
yeah, I did get worried at that point.
And she basically stabs at it, and you just get this like geyser of blood that comes out for a very brief moment and then goes away. And it's kind of cool because it's like a little bit of carnage in the movie, but it's also like, what the fuck was the point of that? Like, one, are these chuds hanging out under the bathtub? Is that what we're implying? Because that doesn't really make sense. And two, like, what we have seen of the chuds, they don't fit. Like, I know how big a shower drain is. It's not like a full-size toilet under your, shower. It's a pipe.
I've been using mine like a toilet for years. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, but it's not a full size. My point being is, like, how the fuck did that thing get in there in the first place? And like, it's just this weird little cutaway scene that the horror fan in me likes because it's a little bit of, goop and carnage and gross. But from a narrative standpoint for this movie, it just kind of leaves you like, what the fuck was that? Why did that happen? And why is it like never brought up again?
And
So,
the very next scene, she's just arranging fake flowers in a basket. There's
yeah.
like, she's not traumatized from it. There's no
Over it.
calling the super, hey man, I was just taking a shower and it backed up and I poked at it and blood sprayed out. This is a problem. You need to come check this out. Like, no, no, whatever. She's just all clean. She's just sitting in her room, looking out the window, turns the TV on. Like nothing
She's
ever
not spending
happened.
the next like day cleaning all the
Yeah.
blood out of her shower that's
Or
everywhere.
laying
So.
like in the fetal position or something
Right.
on the floor.
It would have been cool
Yeah.
if you had like the next scene was like a chud in like a repairman hat and stuff and shirt knocking on the door.
The hanger in his eye. So,
Like,
Yeah, like,
"Oh."
yeah, I'm here to fix your bath.
yeah,
That
it's
would have been
like I
cool.
said, that's the one that really sticks out. But there's a handful of scenes like that where you just kind of watch and go, "What the fuck was that? And why is that in here?" And this isn't a long movie; like it doesn't need to be trimmed down, but it does have a couple cutaway scenes where it leaves you a little like, "Cool, but why?" So
The other thing this
Yeah.
movie does that really I love about B movies is there'll be scenes where they're playing, they'll talk and the scene will end and there'll be music that's supposed to fade out or something. And the music doesn't fade. It's just like a quick cut. The music,
Yeah.
everything just stops. The sound just stops and it's the next scene. That's a favorite editing thing of mine where
Yeah,
they don't give a shit. They don't care. Like we're on to the next scene. Sorry, the music's done.
yeah,
This is all
that's
we've
so
got.
classic. Like it happens a lot in like Van Damme movies and stuff as well, where they're literally like print, cut, fuck it. There's no fading out. There's no going into a next sort of like from like proper action impactful movie music to like a sexy music or anything like that. It's nothing like the Commando soundtrack where it goes from action to sexy Jamaican steel drums every single second and then back to like some spy shit. But yeah, in these classic
this goes
B
from
movies,
You get the steel drum and it's like,
ding 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 ding, and then it goes
this
into
goes
like the
from
sexy
like
bit.
action. Yeah, it's like action scoring to like let's clonk Val on the head with a sewer drain and kill him. So
Yeah, yeah, that's it. It just cuts. Yeah, that's like a classic B movie trope. That and not being able to like set up the shop properly. So like it's supposed to be like that, but you've got like that much of room up there and classic things like that. But and to be fair, like although that like the cameras and stuff are set up really well, like a lot of the film does look like shit. Like it's very like grainy and stuff, but it's very like old school. Like I keep saying, like it's the difference between an 11 million movie like Alien and a 1.5 million movie called Chud. Where but that's the thing. There's like there is meaning behind this. Like in regards to filmmaking, there is the artistry there behind this. There is the idea, the concept, and it is one of those movies that the filmmaker side in me when I watch these movies, I always like. Part of me always feels a little bit sorry for the movies, and I don't mean that in like a really horrible, patronizing way, but I mean it in a way where I always look at movies like this that have good ideas, good concepts behind them, good performances, and all that sort of stuff. I always think about it and go, what if somebody else made this, like Ridley Scott or Steven Spielberg and people like that? Like, because this is an idea, this is a concept that really lends itself to the bigger budget movies. And then I start thinking to myself, and I'm like, the different avenues, the different like places they can go with a movie like this, where they could have spent more time being a bit more claustrophobic down there with the chuds and spending a bit more time or making more of that handheld bit where you're with them more rather than it being pretty quick. And if this is a type of film where you're like, okay, this lends itself to a bigger idea and could have been a bigger movie if it was given the budget of like, an Alien or a Spielberg movie and stuff. And, but then at the same time, it is what it is, and it's a B movie. So then you start thinking about it like, well, then we still got what we got, and it's still an enjoyable movie to watch. But as I said, it's that filmmaker side of me that's always like, I wish it had given the opportunity or been given the chance to be a little bit more, because it quite clearly was trying to be a bit more, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it also goes to show like the artistry of actually making a film. You can
Yeah.
have a big budget and have a shitty movie, or have a little budget and have somebody that has a vision and really talented and knows what they're looking for, and it'd be a great movie regardless of budget. And I feel like this, like I said, it's such a highbrow kind of concept for the story of the movie, and being such a complex kind of thing where we don't even see most of our main characters together throughout the entire thing. If this was in the hands of a much more, I don't know much about Douglas Cheek or Donald Cheek's other work. Douglas Cheek, I don't know much about his other work, but I'm assuming, if you put this in the hands of somebody like Ridley Scott or Steven Spielberg, we would be, the word chud would be on the tip of everyone's tongue for about
Yeah.
6 years after 1984, and be much more, even more inspiring for further future concepts.
Yeah, or
I think too,
even less, and that could be mental. Maybe the reason that it's like this is because like this is inspired so much. Would it be so inspirational if it was bigger budget? Sorry, Dog.
I think too, this is the kind of movie you hear people, and I'm not saying that this should happen, so hear me out. You hear people complain about like remaking classic movies that people love because they don't need to be remade, and that they should go back and remake movies that maybe didn't get right the first time. One, I don't think if they remake Chud that it's gonna, have much more behind it than Chud for if they just re-release the original. But this is the kind of movie where it's like, this is a good idea and a good concept that fell short because of X, Y, and Z. This seems like the kind of movie like would be a good candidate for, like, we could probably remake this, and similar to like The Blob or The Thing or that type of thing. It's a creature feature. Effects have gone a long way. You could make these monsters more appealing if you were to remake it and throw some money at it. The problem with it for this movie, I don't know that you would get the same charm that this movie has. I sure as hell don't think you would get the same performances, because I don't think you're going to. I highly doubt that Matthew McConaughey and Joe Pesci are lining up to be in the remake of Chud or something like that. Whoever you would get to sell tickets for this. But when people say like, oh, like I think they should remake not great movies that have like a good idea behind them, this is kind of the type of movie that they're talking about, is something like Chud. But as soon as you say that, you get into the problem with that is, yeah, but who's gonna see a remake of Chud? That doesn't move the needle the way that, oh, we're remaking Halloween does. Well, whether you like it or not, you're gonna go see that movie because it's a Halloween movie.
We've already said Chud is a cultural touchstone. Who wouldn't see this as a remake? Come on.
I can think of one person that I live with that wouldn't go see it as a remake. So,
is it you?
No.
Oh,
is it your dog?
Well, he wouldn't, but that's because they don't let dogs in the theater. So,
oh yeah. But that's the thing, and also like now, like they wouldn't make a movie that's just called Chud. Like
right.
It would be something else. Like I don't know, it'd be some sort of like fancy like A24 fucking name where it's all hipster horrors and shit like that. Rather than like something called Chud. And I missed that, and you're right. And you said a word that like I think really encapsulates sort of the essence of what these movies are, and that is charm. Like, especially if you're like around our age and stuff like that. Like when we were growing up, and also like these films are like nostalgia as well. So like when we were our age, like growing up, and I was a kid, and like you guys going to the video stores, like you guys, like you had more than Blockbusters. We just had Blockbusters, but you had like Mum and Pops or isn't it, or something like that, and other things. We just had Blockbuster, and so yeah, I used to go down to Blockbuster and get these VHS tapes and just like enjoy them. And then, like I said, I watched this one in my teens on DVD when I was getting so many of them. And then it keeps going, and now like we get to watch something like Chud on Amazon. That's where I watched it, on Amazon Prime. So it's cool that they're still going, but it is the charm of these movies where we always keep going back to them, where because of like the nostalgia side of it and the charm of it, where we're like, these movies, like you can just sit there, you can put them on, you can really just enjoy them. And sometimes they're not necessarily like this, like what I've already mentioned, you said rightly, sort of like street trash. I mean, it is trash, like it's not the greatest movie, and there's dicks and everything everywhere. And stuff
I didn't say it wasn't the greatest movie.
No, but it is still. But I love street trash, and I watch it a lot, and the effects in it are fantastic. But that's the thing, you can always take like the elements of charm from B movies and stuff. It's very much like, I mean, obviously I'm not talking about horror movies, but Miami Connection, one of the greatest, if not like my favorite, so shit, it's amazing and a masterpiece movie. But there's so much charm to these. It's not just sitting there and laughing at them at how bad they are. There's something behind these sort of movies that we fall in love with. And so much in the 80s and like the 70s and stuff, you had the big movies like Jaws, Exorcist, Alien and stuff. And then obviously in the 80s, we started getting into where we had the big franchises like Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and stuff. And even some of those, like, they tend to be, fall on the B movie side of it rather than being like a proper, really good horror. Some of them fall on, especially in the later on in the series. But then there's the outsiders like C.H.U.D and the Blob and so on, like ones that not so many people know about, not so many people talk about, but there's like still so much element of charm to them where they're actually like very competently made movies with like we keep saying, highbrow ideas, highbrow concepts that you can really sort of get behind, really sort of fall in love with. And that's why I love movies like C.H.U.D, where I feel like I end up loving them more than I should do.
We do that a lot.
Yeah, that's it. So anyway, so let's so on the show I still do some facts. I try and do facts. Facts. So number one, C.H.U.D was part of Jordan Peele's inspiration for his 2019 horror movie Us. And a VHS version of C.H.U.D can be seen in the movie. So it's the whole underground aspect of it. And yeah, you can actually see the C.H.U.D VHS in the movie. I looked on Google Images and it was on there. So that's a real fact, that one. But that's quite cool because, I mean, we all know that this was a big, landmark in filmmaking and acting for so many people that it grew the careers of so many that we already knew that it was important anyway. Just Jordan Peele sort of brought it a little bit back in 2019. Number two, C.H.U.D is an acronym for, as I've already said, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dweller. But I did write it, I remember now. But it also means, as we find out later on in the movie, contamination hazard urban disposal, because the bastards are playing more of a trick on us, and there's whatever like toxic waste or something like that down there where it's even more shit. So not only have you got like the toxic waste stuff, but you've also got the C.H.U.Ds. But yeah, so
80s, the 80s boogeyman, toxic waste.
Yeah, that's it. And then number three, an urban legend proven false in 1985 suggested that this was based on a true story that happened in Cincinnati in the 1970s.
Have you ever been to Cincinnati?
Yeah.
I'd believe it.
Is that what happens there? Obviously, I've never been there, but Cincinnati.
The whole state of Ohio is basically a bunch of C.H.U.Ds running around. So
it should stand for Cincinnati Humanoid Underground Dwellers.
I'd be okay with that.
Okay. I'm gonna get so many people from Cincinnati on this thing and be like, "You motherfucker!"
There's only like 5 of them there that even have internet service. I wouldn't worry about it. So,
so there we go. That's some facts on C.H.U.D. So what are your, before we close it off, what are your guys' sort of overall thoughts on C.H.U.D? Obviously, we've spoken a lot, but overall thoughts wise.
who wants to go first? You want me to go?
Go ahead, John. We know you hate the movie.
I don't hate it. I just think it's ultimately like it's fine. It's everything we said is I agree with. It's got good performances, good effects. It's entertaining for what it is. I think the biggest downfall with this movie is it's ultimately kind of forgettable. Like I've seen this movie a handful of times. Like I saw it as a kid. I saw it, I'm sure, as a teenager, and several times because it pops up on Tubi here all the time and all the streaming services and whatnot. Whenever I watch it, it's almost like watching it the first time because ultimately, like in the big scheme of horror movies and all the crazy shit that we do like to watch, it kind of blends into the ether a little bit. So although I like it, I think it's a good movie. I don't have anything overly negative to say about it. I think the biggest downfall is it's at the end of the day kind of forgettable, and unlike a lot of the B movies that I do really like, like The Blob or Night of the Creeps or Return of the Living Dead, or all these others that are borderline classics of the genre, this one kind of falls into the like, yeah, that's fine. I don't have anything bad to say, but it's kind of forgettable, and that's the biggest thing I'd have against it.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like I enjoyed watching it this time, and I thought to myself, why do I watch this so infrequently? But I watched it, I've seen it a few times, like John said, and it did feel very much like, I've seen this before. I've definitely seen this before.
Yeah.
What happens here? When it gets to the end, you're like, oh no, that was pretty enjoyable. When the pacing's fine, the performances are good. It looks pretty good for realizing, like you said, it was like $1.5 million or whatever budget, which again, 84, that's probably quite a bit of money. But you watch it and it's just forgettable. Like there's nothing that really happens that's like, oh shit, you remember that time when the lady was in the shower and she poked it with the wire hanger and blood sprayed out for some reason, and she was arranging flowers, or the little kid was playing with the ball and the C.H.U.D was trying to get out. Remember that? There's so much tension. There's not really like a whole lot of anything memorable that happens. There's not a whole lot of tension. There's not like a whole lot. Nobody really ever feels that much in danger where they can't just easily close the door and walk away, of something, unless the C.H.U.D just busts through the fucking wall just out of nowhere, with the samurai sword and all that stuff. It's fun, and I did enjoy it, but like John said, it's ultimately very forgettable because there's so many things in other movies of this age and this genre where you can, think of The Blob. We talk about The Blob way too much probably, and one of my favorite scenes that I never forget is when the blob falls from the ceiling on that guy and it moves and it just peels all his skin back. There's no scene like that in C.H.U.D where you're like, remember that scene where that thing happened? No, not really. I don't.
Yeah, you were right. I think that there's a. I mean, the word that literally I should get tattooed on me because it's a word I use every single episode. I mean, I make sure I do now, but it's the iconography. The iconography of horror and what it is. And you're right. Like with the Blob, there's so much that even though not enough people have seen the Blob, and if you haven't, obviously this is us telling you need to fucking see it because it's great, and some of the greatest fucking practical effects. It looks gross, it's amazing, but there's iconography to that. There's things like like with the big ones like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. There's iconography to those movies, and there's a reason why they're part of the history of horror. But C.H.U.D doesn't really have that iconography. It doesn't have that history of horror, but what you rightly said as well, John said it as well, and like I've said about, is the charm, and that's what this movie has. And also, it's the I feel like I'm like, it's like a well done, because one, you made a movie, which is always great, but it's like a well done because you tried your best. With what you had, and that's what I always get when I watch these movies. That I actually really enjoy.
At least you tried, cake. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that this isn't like at the dredges. Like this isn't like at the swamp of B movies. Like you said, like this is a highbrow concept. It delivers on the concept, but within the means of what it can achieve because of the budget and stuff. And like I said, there's so many really cool ideas and scenes in this, like the handheld sort of scene as well when they go into the sewer, and they play that really well. And there's not like loads of music going on and that, and they try and create the tension and sort of the dread, but they don't deliver on that as well as they should, which in a lot of movies, especially within horror, if you can create that tension, create that dread, then you've got a movie, you've made a classic, you've made iconography. But with C.H.U.D, there's not really that much of an iconography. But this is a movie, and also I'm with you as well. I mean, like as I said, I watched this in my teens, completely forgot about it until 2 years ago. I was convinced I'd never seen it. And when I started watching it, and I was just like, no, I have seen this. I've definitely seen this, and I remembered everything that happens in it. But it is one of those movies that, like, in a couple years' time, I'll probably be like, I've never seen this movie, and then go and watch it. I'm like, no, I did a fucking podcast episode about it.
What is this C.H.U.D?
Yeah, it's C.H.U.D. What is C.H.U.D? It's such a funny word. These are the movies that I every now and again I really like to sort of like immerse myself in. Like when I do like the double bills of this, or like Alligator as well is a film that I absolutely love. And I think but Alligator also reminds me of this as well, where once again that's a lower budget movie, but yet the performances are in it. They're great. They're not hamming it up so much. They're actually going for it. The script in that is actually like
I would watch
surprisingly good.
Alligator over this most of the time. So
Yeah. And I really like Alligator. I think that's like
I do too.
fantastic. And that's another one, but that people need to see as well. But these sort of like B movies, they are. I really enjoy it when you get the higher class of B movies, like the B plus movies. Like that's what this movie is to me. This is like a B plus movie where there's a little bit more than the trash. There's a little bit more, and even though you think a film called Chud is probably the one of the reasons why people don't watch it, because they're like, I'm not watching a film called Chud. People should watch it. I think, and you said, John, as well, like really rightly as well. This is like a really good entry level into B movies of horror, because it isn't there isn't nothing to this. There is stuff to this.
This is my go-to comparison, but it's not like someone says, I'd really like to give a horror movie a try, and you're like, okay, watch Terrifier, see how that goes. It's not quite that balls deep in everything. Well, that's a whole different conversation. So,
yeah,
but it's more palatable than something like that, and it doesn't push anything too far in one direction where it would necessarily turn people off based off ridiculousness.
Yeah, and as we know, Chud is one of the most important movies that was ever made.
Cinema.
That's it. Well, there we go. So there's. Have you got anything else that you want to say in regards to Chud, or are we all chudded out?
I'm disappointed that there's no fucking Macaulay Culkin family members in this movie.
I did look.
Yeah.
I looked online to see if there was any like extras or anything, and I was just looking, and I was just like, there's got to be at least one more Home Alone cast member in it.
He's the baby that we don't get to see born. So
yeah,
maybe he was Justin or whatever that little kid's name was with the ball in the truck. Uncredited.
Yeah, that's it. Uncredited. Well, there we go. Anyway, so look, I mean, I don't know what you get from that, really. Whether people will watch this and be like, I'm gonna watch Chud, or you're like, no, it sounds pretty shit, I don't want to watch it. I would honestly say watch it. Like whether it's an entry into B movie, like John said, or you just want to put something on that has charm, that is, from nearly like the middle of the 80s, low budget horror, but in all honesty, to me, it's competently made. And they have good ideas and a good concept. And like I said, some homeless guy that masturbates a knife quite a lot. If that's your thing, then I think you should watch Chud. I think you should. Why the fuck not? What else are you going to do with your time if you're not watching Chud? There we go. Anyway, so
just to make your own opinion. Don't listen to what we have to say. Go watch it yourself, and then come back in the comments and tell us how we're all morons, because Chud clearly was the inspiration for such great films as Citizen Kane and Passion of the Christ and whatever other highbrow movies. They all come from Chud. Whether they were before or after Chud, they all come from Chud.
Don't fucking forget it. Like we forgot that we ever watched this movie. So there we go. So thank you. So John, Sean, thank you so much for coming on. Welcome to the Creepzone. I love Dewey Pod-Monster. You know that I do. I listen every single bloody week. It's so much fun. It doesn't matter whether it's about films that I can't fucking stand. It doesn't matter if it's about films that I love. It doesn't matter whether it's films I've never even heard of and then go and watch afterwards and like, yeah, that's shit. Doesn't matter. I still love listening to Dewey Pod-Monster. So tell everybody where they can go and find everything that you do.
Oh, there's a lot of places. So, as far as the podcast itself, you can find us on our site, which is crap.town. Yes, as an actual website is crap.town. We're on all the major podcasting platforms. So, if you search Dewey Pod-Monster, you'll find us on there. And we're also members of the You Run Podcast Network. So, if you go to yourunpodcast.com, you can find us on there as well. And then we haunt social media all over the place. Again, search Dewey Pod Monster. You can find us and tell me I'm an idiot or whatever you want to do. We're available pretty much anywhere that you can search Dewey Pod Monster. It's going to find us. Surprisingly, no one else has tried to steal the name yet.
There we go. Basically, fucking everywhere. Go and listen to the podcast. Go and enjoy everything Dewey Pod-Monster does, because I enjoy it, and I'm a harsh critic. Well, it can't be that bad. I like C.H.U.D. So, but either way, look, I love Dewey Pod-Monster. Love it, and everybody else will too. So make sure that you go and support everything John and Sean do over there. Make sure you rate and review it. That always fucking matters. It really does. And follow, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. If you've enjoyed this conversation, this is what we do on Welcome to the Creepzone. As I said at the start, unrated, unfiltered conversations about something from the world of horror. I love doing these. I really true. As much as my anxiety doesn't, I actually enjoy doing them. And I hope that you've enjoyed it. So please subscribe to the channel and all that shit that all these kids say, all these hipsters say, because I ain't got a fucking clue. And and just go and watch C.H.U.D. Or don't. I don't give a shit whether you do or don't. But if you do, pop it in the comments and let us know. Let us know what you think about C.H.U.D. And is it as important as what we think that it is? Yes, it is. There's your answer. But go and enjoy it. But until next time, stay creepy, fuckers.